Hey guys, so I haven't done a reading wrap up in probably 3 months. So we've got April, May, June. I haven't posted in a while because I've been in a bit of a reading slump and I'm not one of those people where I can just power through it. I just kind of read a lot slower, so there's not much to speak about, and I haven't read any like super 5 stars. I just kind of wanted to see if I can, revive my reading career, and so I'm just going to get through kind of what I've read recently, and I'm going to have to stand up and pick up the books. I don't bring all of them here because I have no room here, so I'm just going to come and go and bring them and show you guys them, because I do like to hold something to talk about it because I think that makes it a little bit easier. Anyway, subscribe with the bell, like, comment for engagement. I do post whenever I think of reading stuff to talk about, so it's not super common, but it's there. And yeah, so I'm just going to grab some books. So the first ones, I got through the rest of the Magnolia Parks books that are out. I obviously read the first two a while back, and then I finally got through the rest of the series. Some of these books are chunky, and like, not only is this book chunky, it's also much taller than regular books. And then you have to think about, like, the font isn't all that big. There's just a lot of reading to do, okay? But I get it, because the story kind of requires it. It's more of a character study than it is a plot heavy book. There are a lot of twists and turns, a lot of toxicity, a lot of miscommunication, and I think for that to work, you do need a lot of pages, because I feel like miscommunication in 10 pages and resolved 10 pages later, it just doesn't have that same anger inducing quality to it. Like, you need, if you're going to do toxic and you're going to do miscommunication and you're going to do cheating and you're going to do all these tropes, you have to give me pages, because I need to like commit to it, right? I think that's just me. If you guys don't know, I talk about this all the time. This is all the Jenna Hastings series, right? And you have them alternating. So you have Magnolia Parks, then you'll have a Daisy Haites book, then you have a Magnolia Parks book, then you have a Daisy Haites book. And they follow the same timeline and the same friendship group, but from the point of view of different people. So this one with Magnolia Parks is from the point of view of Magnolia Parks, and then you'll have a BJ point of view, who's her on and off, again, boyfriend. And then from the Daisy Haites bit, you have Daisy's POV, who is the main character, you have her brother Julian's POV, and then you have Christian's POV. And that's how these run. And so this one, for example, will have a year's worth of stuff in it, and then you go back to almost when this one begun in this one, and you see it from a whole different point of view, but you're like following the same timeline, which is so interesting, right? And they kind of interlink, but they also have their own stuff going on, which is great. It's amazing. So I started with this one, which is The Long Way Home, and this is very much like on again, off again situation, right? But she's starting to get involved with Daisy Haites' brother Julian, and I'm assuming, like many people, rooted for Julian. I wanted that relationship to work. I'm not actually a massive fan of Magnolia and BJ as a couple. I think they kind of suck. I just don't, not even like they suck, because I understand toxicity and I understand all of that, right? And I don't think Julian's like a non-toxic guy. Like, he's toxic just like BJ, but just in a different way. So it's not toxicity that's putting me off. I just think they have no chemistry. I don't know if that's just me. I find Magnolia and BJ have zero chemistry, but they keep on telling us, well, Jenna Hastings keeps on telling us how much chemistry they have, and there's all this love and all this sexual chemistry and all this attraction, and like I said, all this love. I don't see it at all. Like, whenever BJ and Magnolia have scenes together, scenes as if it's like a movie, I feel nothing. I'm like, oh, I could do without this. But then she starts seeing Julian just to piss off BJ, and I'm like, oh, I feel this immediately. There is a shift. Immediately, I'm like, oh, this is it. And all my other Julian girlies out there, it's not made for us right now. So this was a bit of a crazy book for them. I had to find like the bit, because I was like, am I talking about the right book? Yes. There's a lot going on, a lot of Julian in this one. I loved this book, okay? But then the ending, I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, but the ending was absolutely wild, absolutely crazy, absolutely I couldn't wait to read the next book. Okay, but then I realised there was a Daisy Haites book. So we're not actually going to see what happens here. We're going to just start like the timeline again, and then in the next Magnolia Parks book, then we'll kind of get onwards from this one. Okay, but I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. I don't know what would have made it a 5. Maybe it could have just been a tad shorter. I always feel like with these books, with the Magnolia Daisy series, it's always like the middle bit, like right here, right? I love the beginning, I love the end, but it's always like right here that I'm like, oh, just speed it up. Like, there's just so much happening, but I get it. It's supposed to build up to the ending. I get it. If you guys don't like long books, you're gonna hate these, okay? And I'm not. Okay. Then I read the Daisy Haites book, The Great Undoing, and I gave it a 5 out of 5. Wow. Okay, so In this one, obviously Magnolia's dating Julian pretty much for the whole book, to make BG jealous. And Julian keeps on doing things that you're a bit like, I get it, he's like the toxic crime guy, okay, but like a lot of it just doesn't make sense. And then like there's bits of it where I'm like, why is he doing that? I don't get it. And then you get this very short by comparison book, but you get Julian's POV in this one, okay? And like I said, I am a Julian girly. I don't really understand what... I get it. I get that Magnolia and BG was supposed to be endgame, but when this exists, when this book exists, do we really need that to be the endgame? Anyway, this one was incredible. And I gave it a 5 out of 5. Oh, I guess I didn't read this for a while. I just went straight into other books. I'll go pick them up. So then I read Wild Love by Elsie Silva, which is her new series that she's starting. It's going to be called the... Why is this crooked? What is this going to be called? Wild Love. Oh, Rose Hill. This will be the Rose Hill series. So we had the Chestnut Springs. We also did have Gold Rush, which is the first one. I'm going to read that one. And they actually are reprinting it. I've just noticed. I went to Woodstones yesterday or the day before that, and I saw the first one being reprinted. It's called Off to the Races, and it's reprinted in this format, because the one before that, I have them on the floor there. They're like a tiny bit bigger and actually ruins the bookshelf. I'm selling those because they're reprinting the new ones, and you can buy the first one and then you can pre-order the other 3. Yeah, I know people are saying that you can kind of tell that it's her first series because it's written kind of the way your first book or first series would be written. And then we obviously had Chestnut Springs, which I read all 5 of those. Flawless, Heartless, Powerless, Reckless, and Hopeless. And then we're starting the Rose Hill series, and this is the first one. It's called Wild Love. I love these covers, and all of them are going to be in this style, but just different colours. And I'm so excited. These are like perfect. I don't know why I love this cover so much. And the second one is going to be like orange. It's going to be so nice. But I actually gave this a 3 out of 5. Maybe 3.5 on a push, I'm gonna say, for this. It was fine. I just didn't really... Let me tell you what it's about. Okay, so we have Ford and we have Rosie. Rosie is living, I think, up in Canada, and she got fired from her job even though it wasn't her fault. And her boyfriend's really unsupportive, and so she moves to a town for a little bit just to escape life over there. And Ford is a billionaire, and he's starting a record studio, like a recording studio in Rose Hill. And he finds out he actually has a daughter because he donated sperm when he was kind of poor. Well, when he wanted to go to concert, his parents didn't give him money, basically, is what it was. And the daughter, well, her dad like died, and her mum's super ill. And so she's just looking for somewhere to crash for a bit, someone to take care of her. She's about like 13. And I loved that aspect of it. She actually wasn't very annoying, which is nice. I hate when they add in like a kid or like a teen and they're super annoying, or they sound like an adult, but then they keep on saying that it's a kid, but you're like, well, this sounds like what an adult would say. I feel like she was pretty well written, and I liked the relationship between Rosie and the kid, and I liked the relationship between Ford and the kid, and then I liked... Oh, the lighting is crazy. And I liked the relationship between Ford and Rosie, kind of. I just felt like it was supposed to be a friends to kind of acquaintances to lovers, but he always liked her and she always liked him, but they didn't know that each other liked each other because he's friends originally with her older brother. So it was that whole kind of like best friend's younger sister, brother's best friend. They used to be friends, and I liked it. I just wasn't like kicking my feet. And also it wasn't like I couldn't stop reading. There were actually moments where I didn't really think about reading the book. And that's when I know I can't give it above like a 4-star, right? Like if I'm not desperate to read more. Right, and I just wasn't desperate to read more. And I think that's why I'm giving it like a 3.5, just to not be harsh. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next ones. I'm obviously going to read the rest of them. It's not like I'm not going to read them. It's just not like my ultimate fave. Anyway, then I read Emily Henry's Funny Story. I dropped everything because I pre-ordered this. It appeared at my house. I dropped absolutely everything to read this. And I always buy these hardbacks. I want the other ones to get reprinted in this hardback because I don't think they have been, unless I'm just confused. Because I have Beach Read, Book Lovers, and People Who Meet on Vacation in like the regular paperback, kind of like this size. And then I have Happy Place and Funny Story in this Waterstones edition, and they always come with this ombre. And I want the other ones in this because they're beautiful. Anyway, we know how I feel about Emily Henry. She's my oxygen, she is my water, she is my fuel, she is my food. I live, breathe, walk, talk, cry, laugh these books, and that's what happened here. This has become my new favourite one. And I say this every single time an Emily Henry book comes out. I say, this one is my favorite. And yet I give them all 5 stars. How can it get any better than that? Well, this is a 6 out of 5. I'm saying this now. This is a 6 out of 5. I've seen love or hate about this. Some people love it. Some people are disappointed. There's not much in between. I loved it. It's so windy outside that like everything's flying. I feel like someone's gonna get hit with like a trampoline. This one is my favorite. It is a, how do I even, so we have Daphne and we have Miles, right? And they both get cheated on by their partners. I tried to say that sentence. Okay, so Daphne is dating a guy, Miles is dating a girl. The guy and the girl were best friends, and then they cheated with each other on their partners right before his wedding with Daphne. I think I'm getting that right. And so then she is forced to move out, essentially, because it's his house, his friendship group, his town that she lives in. And so she's moved out, and she moves into Miles's house because guess what? He was also cheated on by that same situation. So they live together and they're depressed together. He's like smoking weed every day. He's, you know, not happy about it. She's not happy about life. And then they have to fake date because they still get invited to their wedding, right? The people that they were cheated on by. They get invited to their wedding, and Daphne basically in a bit of a blur says, oh, I'm actually dating Miles, so I'll come with a +1. Because they were like, oh, you don't need a +1, do you? And she was like, I actually do, because I'm dating Miles. And they were super shocked about it. So then they start hanging out to like fake date, but then he's like, oh, I was born and raised here. Let me just show you the town. Let me show you what's fun to do around here. And then they start bonding, and I think it was great. I loved it. I actually loved it. All the extra characters were amazing. Miles' sister was great. I was highlighting from page 1. Page 1, I was like, oh, I'm here, I'm ready. I'm here and I'm, okay, I lied. Page 1 has absolutely nothing on it. But page 2 has everything. Yeah, he cheated on his bachelor party with his bestie. Petra is what her name was. Petra and Peter. Peter and Petra, good for them. Yeah, I was highlighting, I was living my life. So I was super excited about this. I'm not even gonna go into all the side plots because Emily Henry, one thing she will do is develop the whole world, all the characters, the whole plot and everything around it. She would develop it to this degree right here. They developed the job, they developed why she needs to leave. Like every chapter has a how many days until she leaves the town, because Daphne essentially wants to move out once her job is done, and then you gotta find out if she's gonna stay in the town because Miles. You develop Miles, you develop Miles's backstory with his parents, you develop her backstory with her parents, you develop his relationship with his sister who also comes over to stay. Everything is so developed. His job is developed. Like everything about everyone just makes sense. You feel like it's a well-developed world. I was just in this. I think I read it in one day. It was incredible actually. It's a 6 out of 5 and I will not hear otherwise. Then I read Frida McFadden's Never Lie. I think I listened to it on audio and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I felt like it was a good guilty read. It was like quick and juicy, great on audio. I do love a mystery thriller on audio. I've been listening to more Frida McFadden just because everyone's been recommending her stuff. So I read Never Lie and yeah, I thought it was good. I was sucked in. It was about this like couple that ends up in a house of a therapist that got murdered and trying to figure out who murdered her, and then they start hearing things around the house. She's being gaslighted, the girl in the relationship. The guy's like not believing that anything's happening, and it's like a whole thing. And then you think there is a twist, and I started being like, oh, this is for sure what happened, and then it didn't. Something else happened, and it was actually kind of good in retrospect. Like when I'm thinking about it now, it's actually really good. So yeah, and then I read Jenna Hastings' Magnolia Park's Into the Dark, and this follows on from obviously the 2 books I just talked about, and it's full of grief, full of sadness at the beginning. It's like very heavy at the beginning, and I almost cried within the first like 20 pages. It was like a lot was happening. And then yeah, the ending was for the Magnolia and BJ people, so not for me, but I still felt like it was a good book. It was a good read. There was a lot happening. I do feel like she needed to cut down the middle. It was just a lot like of stuff, and I felt because it was so focused on Magnolia and BJ, I just didn't care as much, but I still gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I said good ending to the story, I guess, but we know I would have ended things differently for Magnolia. The grief was crazy and made me emotional. That's what I said. And then we have Powerless, which everyone hyped up. I bought it in hardback. I also have it on my Kindle. So I was reading on my Kindle. I read the first how much did I say I read? Okay, I read the first 15% super quickly, like within 2 sittings I was done 15% and I loved it. I was like really sucked in. I liked it. Everyone's hyping it up. Everyone's saying like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. The romance in this is crazy. Anyway, I started reading it and I was like, wait, this sounds a bit similar, but I'm just gonna keep on reading. And then once I got past the 15% mark, you realize that this is a very poorly done copy of The Hunger Games, which is an amazing series, okay, arguably a classic. We will be having that in schools in the future. Now, this was just a shit version of that, and I mean that with my whole chest. I'm going to say this was a shit version of that. Everything about this sucked, actually. There was zero character development, zero plot development, nothing was described, everything was said. It was all say, not see or imagine. It was, this was there and there was gold here and this was a golden building and this was a this, and I don't know what the arena looked like because it was supposed to be like a copy of the Hunger Games. It was literally a copy of the Hunger Games. Like, they have to even do the performances at the beginning where like one by one they stand up and they have to like entertain the crowd and stuff. It was so poorly done. So poorly done. Everyone that told me this book was going to be amazing, who hurt you? Like, who hurt you? I hated this so bad. I don't know if like because I read the Hunger Games when I was younger when it first came out, like maybe I just don't get it. Like, I think that's how I feel. I felt like nothing was described. And there was a scene where they're in the arena, like running away from people trying to kill them, and they're like slow dancing. Everything was cringy, nothing was described, everything was just like, everything was described with words, but it wasn't like I could then go and imagine it. It was all just so bland and so I don't know, and that's what I mean, like the first 10 or 15% was actually really good because I felt like I could imagine like what the town looked like and what the people looked like. I felt like everything was kind of easy to imagine. It was pretty well described, and it's the moment they went into the arena and all of the focus and energy got shifted to the slow burn romance, and that was suddenly the main plot. We lost all of this. Like, the arena wasn't described anything, and if you have read the Hunger Games, you know that there is a romance plot in that, but it doesn't take away at any point from descriptions of the other characters, what's happening, the arena, the area. Like, everything is so beautifully described, and you still have this slow burn romance. In here, the moment the slow burn entered, it's like nothing else existed. The way I imagined this book at a certain point was just a white room, just all white walls, and then just like this couple doing stuff in the middle, like puppets, like you're just moving them around. Oh, and then they almost kiss, and then they, you know what I mean? Like, there was just nothing happening. I hated this. I actually DNF'd it. So I didn't finish it. I DNF'd it at, I don't know, maybe like 30, 40%, 50, something like that. I've been DNFing a lot more recently. Like, if I get to 50% and I don't like the book, I'm not reading the other 50%. So I gave it a 2 out of 5, mainly, might even be a 1. This might be my 1-star read. I don't know. I'm giving it a 2 because I liked the beginning. After that, I was like, this is just trying to be Hunger Games and failing so incredible. I don't know why you would pick the Hunger Games to base your books on, because the Hunger Games are so good that like anything else just doesn't compare. Like, don't compete where you don't compare is, I guess, my tea in the shade. So I'm not reading any of the other ones. There's like a little novella after this, and then there's a book coming out after this, and I'm like tempted to just sell this one. I've been selling books recently that I'm not using for like literally £2. Because someone might enjoy it for £2, you know? So I might just sell it because I just don't get it, honestly. Because of that, I decided to reread The Hunger Games, and I actually managed to get my boyfriend to read The Hunger Games with me, and he has never read a fictional book in his life. How did he get through English literature at school? He read Spark Notes. My boyfriend's not a big reader for personal reasons. It makes it sound like he's had like a traumatic experience with a book. Like, no, he's just not a reader. He's read some non-fiction on like audio and stuff, typical boy stuff, just read non-fiction and vibe. So I was racking my brain. I was like, how can I get him to read books, fictional books? Because I want him to buddy read with me. And because of how bad Powerless was, I wanted to reread The Hunger Games to be like, am I just overhyping the series in my head? Is it actually quite like mid and I'm just overhyping it? So I said to him, hey, do you want to read The Hunger Games with me? You can listen to it on audio and I'll read at the same time and we can chit chat about it. Tell me why I'm still not done with the series. Not because it's bad. Spoiler alert, it's not bad. It's actually amazing. I just have been reading other stuff as well in the meantime, whereas he's obviously listening on audio, which is a lot quicker for him. But he's not only finished the whole Hunger Games trilogy, gave me his reviews of all of them, and he's gone on to start a new series because I made him read a new series. And so now he's more than halfway through that. He's started reading Scythe, so he's read Scythe, Thunderhead, and now he's, I guess, onto The Toll. And I'm still reading the Hunger Games series. Anyway, let me bring that up for you guys. And coincidentally, as I start reading this series, not only does this limited edition series come out to Waterstones, which is all hardback, I'm currently on Mockingjay. This comes out, so obviously pre-order it. So we have the Hunger Games, Catching Fire, we have the Mockingjay, and we also have the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is what they all look like. They're like printed on hardback, not with like a sleeve, which I do love because I hate how damaged the sleeve gets. And it comes in this beautiful box. Anyway, so I've been reading that. I'm on this one now. I've never read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm excited to read that like right at the end. And then obviously it was just announced that another book is coming and another movie is coming from Haites' Time in the Arena. I'm so excited for that. Anyway, so I'm reading this. Now, let me just say, they're all like a 10 out of 5. Okay, Hunger Games, the first one was revolutionary. When I read this one, I finished it in like 3 sittings. I was hooked from page 1. I'm literally giving it a 10 out of 5. The reread, like, I remember loving it initially when I was like 13 when I read it, but now as a 24-year-old, I'm like, oh, this is incredible. This incredible writing. This could never do what Susan Collins did here. Never. It was not even close. There was no competition. Like I said, don't compete. Don't compete where you don't compare. Don't compare where you don't. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, these are all a 10 out of... Obviously, I haven't read the last one yet, but I am on Mockingjay. I'm remembering how good it was when, like, you guys know. If you haven't read this series yet, and I'm spoiling you, I mean, it's been like a decade, but once we get into, like, the actual revolution, it gets so good. So I read all of those. I know people kind of hated on the Catching Fire one a bit, but I always loved that arena, and I loved that Hunger Games. Like, I loved that whole set. I think it was so well done. It was so creative. The clock was incredible. I forgot how good it was, and I loved the ending. I didn't expect it the first time I read it when I was a kid, and I was like so itching to get to that part now. And yeah, I'm just excited to finish this series. I'm going to read the prequel. So I'm currently reading Mockingjay. I also finished Chloe Walsh's Binding 13, which I'm reading on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical book, but everyone hyped it up as this like incredible found family romance book series. There are a lot of books. I think there are like 5 or 6. One recently came out and everyone loved it. I'm giving it a 3 out of 5, but I'm still itching to read the second one. So it's a bit of like a hate read for me, if that makes sense. Like, it's so bad that it's good. The ending was crazy, kind of. So I'm looking forward to reading the second one, which is called Keeping 13, because I know the main guy's like jersey number for the sport that he plays, which is rugby, is 13. So it's Binding 13 and then Keeping 13, and then there's something about 7, and then there's something about something. Something's going to follow other characters as well. But I gave it a 3 out of 5. I thought when I was reading it that it was a bit cringe, like actually very incredibly cringe when you're reading it. Focus on the fact how cringy it is. It's love at first sight, essentially, for both of them, which made me ick a little bit. Not because love at first sight, but just because of how it was done. There are so many weird scenes where they're like staring into each other's eyes just in the middle of the school corridor, but they like don't know each other yet. I don't know, it was giving me weird vibes, and it's very cringe so far. But there's also this bit of her being a massive pick-me, and like I actually don't really like her as a main character. I like the other stuff happening, I guess. No, like there's a lot of sad stuff happening, but like I like the plot development and the character development of all the other characters, but her character grinds my gears, and you're obviously in her perspective a lot, and she's just so small. She's so small, so tiny. I'm so small, I had to jump up just to, I don't know, like pick something. Like it's crazy, and she just keeps on how small she is. And like if someone wraps their arms around her, she'll be like, oh my god, I'm so small, they could wrap their arms twice around me. And she's also so virginal and so like inexperienced, and she does very weird stuff. Like she'll point at his penis and like say like that, and I'm like, oh, you. Anyway, she behaves like a child, and he keeps on talking about how he can't date her because he's almost 18 and she's still 15. The age of consent is 16, so I get what he was saying, but then she turns 16 like a few chapters into the book. She turns 16, and that becomes fine then, right? Which it is. I completely think it's fine for even an 18-year-old to date a 16-year-old, in my opinion. As long as they're both just on the same maturity level, they're both like teens, essentially, right? They could even be in the same school at that point, which makes sense. I know it's chronically online to say that like any age gap is bad, but I think some age gaps are fine. So that wasn't even the problem for me, that she like just turned 16 and he was 17 turning 18, which is fine. But it's how much of a like boy he is, and like how much he's Brown, and she's literally like a small, tiny, petite, I'm so small, like 5 foot nothing, and then she's also super virginal, and it's just supposed to be like she's literally a child, which made me so uncomfortable. I didn't know that this was like a high school romance, because you guys know I don't read romance below the age of 18. Like, I don't read high school romance. It's the reason why I don't read a lot of like YA, and I didn't really like Penelope Douglas's Punk 57 because it was just so like young. This one had like no sex in it, obviously, because she's so virginal, but she's also like 16, so I get it. I just wish they had aged all of this up to be in like uni. I think it would have worked a lot better. I understand that some of the plot points wouldn't work because then she would have moved out of her house and that issue wouldn't be there anymore, but I don't know, I feel like this could have been done a little bit differently. I'm not telling people what to do with their lives, and I'm not telling Chloe Walsh how to write a book. I am going to read book 2 and I'll see kind of how I go from there, because maybe now they'll start aging up, hopefully, and I want less of this like, I'm just a child, I'm just a virgin, I'm just so small, I'm schmalbean, because it just aches me out. It's so cringy, so pick me. Now I am rereading Scythe because obviously I told my boyfriend to read it, and I'm also rereading it because I never got to the toll. I read Scythe, I read Thunderhead, and then I left it too long to get to the toll, and because of how complicated the plot is, I just completely forgot. So whenever I try to reread the toll, I'd just be so confused. So I'm rereading Scythe, which I'm almost done with. I have like an hour left on the audiobook. I'm listening to it on audio even though I do have it physically, and I'm going to read Thunderhead and The Toll, hopefully just all in one succession. I am currently reading Mockingjay, which is obviously going to be a 5 out of 5. I'm already loving it. And I'm also reading Wildfire by Hannah Grace, which is book 2 of the Icebreaker book. Now with the Icebreaker, I did say it wasn't written the best, so I wasn't like super looking forward to this book, but kind of. Like, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't written the best, but it was, I think, Hannah Grace's first book that she wrote. I felt like the POV wasn't great. Like, the guy's POV didn't sound like a guy, it sounded like a girl writing a guy. And I felt like it dragged on a bit at the end, and then some of the sex scenes were really cringe. And yeah, it was just a lot of like cringiness, I guess. Wildfire is already panning out to be a much better book than Icebreaker, so if you didn't like Icebreaker, maybe try giving Wildfire a chance. Her writing has gotten a lot better. The dual POV is working a little bit better. I think it's less cringy so far. I'm about like 25% in, so it's a lot easier to get through. I'm not icking or cringing as hard, and it's just developed a lot better. The characters are a lot better. I don't know, everything about it just seems like a step up from the last book, so onwards and upwards for Miss Hannah Grace, and that is it for my wrap up. So hopefully I'll see you a lot sooner than like a month. Subscribe with the bell icon for engagement. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.